What is the most TMI thing a coworker has said to you? I never thought I would have a reason to tell this story, but here goes. A few years ago, I was an innocent 17-year-old girl working as a receptionist hair washer at a hair salon. My boss, 45-year-old woman, comes in and asks me to wash her hair. This is a very normal request for stylists to do at work in a hair salon, so I say sure, no problem. I have her in the shampoo bowl, and once the water touched her hair it became very sticky and knotty. She noticed my confusion and causally said, "Sorry, it's so dirty. It's full of CM and I didn't have time to shower this morning." Record screech. Me and a coworker look very similar from behind and often get mistaken for each other. On one particular day there was some maintenance being done next to my cubicle and had to use his workstation temporarily. He had to go into a meeting anyways. I sat there working and someone comes up behind me and whispers, "I'm going to frick you with that strap on later." I turned around to see our manager's face turned stone cold. She just simply walked away. I know I come in late too often, but I think that's crossing a line. A coworker once told me she gags when she sticks a Q-tip in her ear. She said that was weird, since she can deep throat a dong no problem. Gagging from oral sex. I have a herpes outbreak right now, said by a 50-year-old cashier to my 16-year-old bagger self with a customer standing there as well, completely out of nowhere. I had a boss at a cafe that was way into astrology and all things metaphysical. She changed her birth name to some weird combination of Native American and tribal African. She was convinced that someone was stealing her mail, so she started getting all of her packages sent to the cafe. This included about $100 worth of dildos, which she immediately opened and inspected for damage before signing the package. She no longer works there. $100 doesn't get you as much dildo as it used to. Just the other day my coworker was telling a funny story about his ex-wife, and then out of nowhere he ended it with, "Well, she was responsible for my child's death." WTF? Who just ends a funny story with that? I worked with a very overweight girl who told me about the fat people swinger parties she'd go to and how she'd slept with over 100 men by age 22. She lived in a trailer and wore t-shirts that said things like, "If you're rich, I'm single." Sounds like such a lovely person. A coworker told me his dong is peeling like how a snake sheds its skin. He asked me if I wanted to see, and I said no. Then he flipped his dong out, peeled some of the skin, and threw it at me. Yes, I'm surrounded by weird people. Showed me the second worst sex tape I have ever seen, which consisted of a shot of her butt then pretty much extreme close up of his grunting face the whole time. Now I want to know the worst. I can't come in today. I'm not feeling well, and crap the bed. I don't need the details. I'm not feeling well will suffice. It's because they were faking it. No one questions you when you say you pooped the bed. Wasn't said but shown. I worked with a woman in her late 50s. She was showing a colleague and me pictures of her new house and garden. We got to pictures of the bedroom, then smack in the middle of pictures of the bedroom there was a spread eagle, naked, on the bed. It got a tad awkward after that. My old boss told me about her husband's pornography addiction and how he watched all sorts of bukkake, interracial, and gangbang pee. He never wanted to have sex with her apparently. It made my conversations with him rather awkward. That's all I could think about was this guy's pee addiction. I had a coworker that told me some weird stories on the daily, but this one takes the cake by far. Jeff was a bit of a player back in the day and loved to play little games during copulation. While his partner was good and distracted, Jeff would reach into her purse and grab a stick of lipstick. He would then proceed to insist upon doggy style and use the tube of lipstick to draw lines on her back, perpendicular to her spine. Each line acted as a distance marker so that when it came time to ejaculate, he would pull out and shoot for the furthest line in an attempt to gain a new personal best. Go Jeff. Huck, I now have a new goal in the bedroom. My coworker called her doc from her cubicle explaining her blistery hot rash that formed over the weekend. She was even showing it to people. Doc says it might be contagious. Coworkers casually ask her each morning how her rash is doing. Besides wanting to puke, I think, why are you coming to work if that crap is contagious? Coworker I've detested for months tells me everything about his life. The most recent bit of info is how he's been cheating on his wife of 6 years for the last 6 months, but he's mad because the girl he's been seeing on the side gave him herpes. This sucker is a father of 2. His second child was born 8 months ago, and before anybody says anything, if I had any way of contacting his wife I would, but I've never met the woman. Co-worker isn't on FB, etc. Seems like it's time for the old follow home ruin his life shtick. I asked my buddy how his Valentine's Day was. He told me he blew a wad at Lovers, the adult store. Later on I realized he meant he spent a lot on lingerie for his girlfriend, but I understand that very differently. Co-worker said he got an infected ingrown butt crack hair because he rides his bike too much. Apparently the doc had to lance it. I didn't really need to hear that while eating my morning yogurt. I assume he just thought since the discharge from the infected hair was of a similar consistency to your yogurt that it was relevant. My 40-ish boss started dating a much younger guy after her divorce and told all of us 20-somethings way too much info on their sex lives. While not too terrible, I can't help but flinch every time I remember her saying she was leaving work early to shave her legs, and more before their date. Shudder. One custodian I used to work with would tell us all the time about when he was stationed in Thailand. He was in a search and rescue helicopter in the Vietnam War, and would mention all the time that he had sex with a bunch of Thai prostitutes. He'd also constantly mention that he still travels to Thailand to go golfing. My husband was riding in the car with his boss, on their way to a tech support appointment, when the boss casually mentioned that his adult daughter, who was going through gender reassignment, male to female, is now able to achieve orgasm as a woman after healing from her most recent surgery. He just wanted to share the awkwardness he experienced with somebody. Imagine your daughter calling you up and saying, "Hey dad, I can see him now." I had a girl at work show me the carpet burns on her knees from the aggressive sex with her boyfriend the night before. Those were some mighty impressive carpet burns. A girl did that in my class in high school once. Her sir was in the military and that was the result of his first night back home. I knew that one co-worker was a furry with fantasies of a huge dragon tying him down. I knew every drug another co-worker took, the entire mental health history of 2 others, and another just told me astoundingly personal stuff about her childhood history of abuse and other stuff. I'm happy to listen to all of that, and I did like those people, but I just don't really understand why people tell me this stuff when they barely know me. I'm pretty freaked up myself, and maybe they pick up on that, but I only talk about it online with complete strangers like a normal person. My co-worker likes to go into graphic detail of his sex life. Everything from the girl's figure to how long he lasted to how he ended up finishing. I used to try to tune him out. Now I just go along with it all bro-like. I found the latter makes him easier to deal with. I was temping at an office building, and my job was to relieve the receptionists when they would take their breaks. Well, one of the women started telling me about her daughter's abortion within minutes of me meeting her. She also told me that she was going to meet her new guy later, but she was on her period so she could only blow him. Yikes. I started a new job waiting tables and my first day of training was really slow, so my co-worker and I spent most of it chatting. Within an hour of meeting me, she decided to tell me all about her ongoing experience with menopause and the very irregular, very heavy periods it was causing. In particular, that the blood clots looked like pieces of raw liver coming out of her vagina. Blew up. Ask her if she's tried cooking it and feeding it to her friends. Oh. A gay co-worker vividly described his weekend escapade with a dude he brought home from the bar. The worst part is I was oddly intrigued and couldn't stop listening. It wasn't until he told me he was bent in a pretzel shape that I realized it was TMI, but at that point it was too late to turn back. Today I told my co-worker about the impressively long hair I pulled out of my butthole. Seriously, it was clearly a hair from my head and it was long. How do they even get in there? Did I eat it? Did it come alive and crawl into my ass while I was sleeping? Crazy long hair. I interned on a building site for a summer to get some managerial experience, and it was particularly hot one day, so I went outside to get some air to find one of my 50-something female co-workers standing out there too. Me, being the polite little bastard that I am, said, "It's so hot in there, I had to come out for some air," to which she replied, "Freaking right, I have such a sweaty C. Awkward silence ensued. She bent over and pulled down her pants to show me the massive bruise she got from falling onto a rock. The lady was 65 years old. The more I read Reddit, the more I realize Forrest Gump showing LBJ his butt isn't as unusual as I thought it was. This literally happened last night. Co-worker walks up to me and says, "My girlfriend and I got really drunk this weekend and she waxed my butthole." The dishwasher at the restaurant I worked at was this crusty old redneck who could barely read, yet apparently he had amazing sexual exploits in his life. He once screwed his GF so hard she crapped the bed. He once had a threesome with 2 girls and performed oral sex on them for 3 hours. He claimed the speed would make you do that to a person. He once did a girl so hard in his truck he busted the suspension, but it was worth it because he had never been with a girl who shaved the beaver. What made it awkward though was the fact that his daughter had gotten him the dishwasher job there and had to listen to her father's disgusting sex life stories because he spared no detail even when she was around. Oh, you have a rubber husband too? God, I love mine so much I take it with me everywhere in my purse. I've lost mine though and keep having to use my hand instead. Overheard from the other side of my cubicle where a 65-year-old lady was talking to her friend. It was one of those rubber jar openers, not a dildo vibrator. When I worked in Nashville, a middle-aged, I'd say mid-50s, man went into detail about the conversations he'd had with his 16-year-old daughter about losing her virginity. That she regularly attends and organizes swingers parties and nonchalantly invited me to come with her. This woman is in her 30s, approaching 300 pounds and maybe slightly cray-cray. Sounds like an automatic yes. During a training session, 2 co-workers in their late 50s were talking about having blood in their urine. In another team meeting, a manager was talking about some issues with FMLA. A young co-worker, new to the job world, asked what kinds of family events allowed you to take FMLA. The manager mentioned pregnancy, and that's when another woman sitting across from him jumped in with, "That can't happen to me. I have my tubes tied in an overtly sexually way," towards the manager. "They need to get that checked out. My dad had blood in his urine and it was the only sign that he had kidney cancer. Had to get his kidney and a tumor the size of his kidney removed 2 weeks later." Wasn't said to me directly, but I overheard a co-worker talking to another girl in the kitchen. The married girl said that her husband has a 9-inch dong. The other girl said, "No way, your husband is short." The married girl said she would go home that night and measure it. The next day, she said, "Yeah, it's only 5.1/2 inches." Chick, 19, who had just started working at the restaurant I work at, during the middle of a dinner rush stopped me every time I had a second to continuously tell me about her sexcapades the following day of running naked through a guy's house and slipping down the stairs, therefore getting rug burn on her bum, private part and back. I'm sorry, that's too personal, and supposedly she had told another co-worker that she was a virgin a week prior. I hate to think that was her first time. Just sitting at lunch when through the smallest of connections she turned the story towards catching her husband cheating on her. Same lady another time told us about her daughter having an abortion. That he asked his wife if he could breastfeed from her just to see what his daughter gets to do. Not really TMI, but he will threaten me, jokingly, with "I will stab you in the chest and freak your ribcage," kind of demented, but that's who he is. Newish co-worker cordially related a story of her weekend when I asked if she did anything interesting. At a family party she hosted, she got blackout drunk, assaulted her husband after a shouting match, got in her car, did $1,000 of damage hitting a tree in her own yard before continuing to drive to her dad's house 20 minutes away. She is about 45 yo. Her and her husband have already been divorced and remarried. My cubicle neighbor, name Jenny, age 50, type kind of a fat redneck, is continuing to talk to her mother on the phone about a rectal cyst, discharges, and recurring hernia. I usually only put one earbud in, today I'm using both. She was blowing her BF. She went for the balls, she tasted and saw poop. Her moral of the story, wipe front to back. I liked being the guy that might have been gay. You weren't sure, but could talk to him anyway. But sweet baby Jesus. I'm saving my virginity for my wedding night, so I've gotten pretty good at blowjobs. judging by the way my fiance hollers. Coworker telling me about how his parents freaked out when he came out to them. He said they were frantically asking if it was something they did wrong. Raised him incorrectly. What was it? Please God tell us what it was we did to make you gay. His response in a nonchalant, shoulder shrug way. I don't know. I just like sucking dong. I'm all grown up now. Sometimes people just want to have sex. Like, when I give a guy my butthole it's like a meaningful gift. She should be on GW methinks. I used to work at a grocery store chain. Ended up having to work a day in our sister store. The manager there asked if I knew his wife, manager at our home store, and proceeded to tell me a story about how one night she wouldn't have sex with him so she went to sleep. He said he woke her up by blasting CM in her face and then throwing her a towel and saying clean it up. Could never look at my boss without envisioning her face drenched in semen. She was not hot. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.